The flow state. We've all experienced it before at some point in our lives. It's that point where time suspends and you're so deep into some sort of problem-solving process that your mind is hyper-focused on that one thing. Everything unrelated to that process basically ceases to exist, and your brain is operating on a level, a full order of magnitude above and beyond what is typical for you. Now, I want you to sit with that thought for just a minute, but first I want to give you a brief update on where I'm at in life. So now that I've officially completed my move from Chicago to Lisbon, my focus has shifted back to building my business. It's time for me to really figure out how can I not only channel my knowledge, my passions, my life experiences in a way that truly brings value to you, the listener or the viewer, but also to build a viable business around that value that I'm hopefully able to deliver to you. This is no simple task, as I'm sure you would imagine. Like with any business, it requires a lot of thought, a lot of planning, a lot of ideation, a lot of testing, learning, failing, reiterating, trial and error, and most of all, it requires a lot of focus. And by focus, I don't mean half-hearted attempts. I don't mean just dabbling with an idea in my spare time. I mean being fully locked in, being fully committed, and fully entering into that flow state that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. I mean entering into that state of mind where the brain is firing on all cylinders to unlock its full creative and problem-solving potential. I've talked in the past about the importance of focus and how it must be trained just like any other skill. So if you don't practice focusing and you don't actively take steps to improve your focus, then you're not going to be very good at it, or at least you're not going to be as good at it as you could be if you put some effort into it, into developing your ability to really lock in. And when I say that you can actively take steps to improve your focus, this implies that you can modify your lifestyle and your daily actions to become more conducive for focusing the mind. So there's a lot of different lifestyle modifications that a person can make to be more focused. And I'll touch on those things a bit later, but my understanding is that on a physiological level, everything that we do to be more focused boils down to shifting the mind into a certain frequency that maximizes the brain's full creative and problem-solving potential. So I first began to grasp this concept in Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, where he goes into pretty extensive detail about the different brainwave patterns and how each is associated with different levels of consciousness. For example, a person that's very relaxed, they're going to be in a totally different brain frequency than someone who's, say, panicking or concerned for their safety, or they feel like they're in danger. And what I find both fascinating and encouraging about this is that the brain can really be tuned to these different frequencies, just like how your radio can be tuned to different radio stations. And what's more is that rather than passively sitting back and listening to whatever music is on the radio, you can actively change the station until you reach a frequency that broadcasts what you want to hear in that particular moment. So in other words, you can change the frequency in your brain to get desired outputs, just as you can change the radio frequency for different stations to get the music that you want to hear. And the combination of understanding the different wave frequencies along with their associated states of consciousness, plus knowing that you have the power to actively shift your mind up or down into these various frequencies, in my opinion, is quite life-changing. That's a really powerful thing to know. Now that you know you can move up and down the spectrum of brainwave frequencies, I want to give you a quick rundown of the different frequencies as I understand them. Now, keep in mind, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just sharing with you what I learned from reading this book. So if you want to explore this further, then I highly suggest you actually pick up Joe Dispenza's book and give it a read for yourself. Before I continue on, I just want to say that a lot of the lessons that I've learned in life have come from reading tons and tons of books over the years. Now, the great thing about books is that they open everyday people like you and me up to the vast trove of knowledge that's been put into the world by some of the greatest minds that have ever lived. And in a world where brain rot is becoming a real problem thanks in large part to ultra short form content and social media, I truly think that taking the time to read really good books gives a person a lot of the knowledge and wisdom that they need to separate themselves and really level up in this journey that we call life. At least that's certainly been the case for me. Now, while I think reading physical books is best, if that's not your thing, then you can also just listen to audiobooks and still come away with understanding the key themes and concepts that you can employ for yourself. So today I'm sharing with you a list of some of the life-changing books that I've read in the hopes that you'll also find them useful for yourself. All you have to do is click the link in the description below, and when you enter your info, you'll immediately receive an email from me with the book list. Now back to the video. So the first are delta waves, and these are the slowest brain waves, and they're typically associated with deep relaxation and deep sleep. And while you're in this pattern, you likely have no level of awareness of your external environment because you're deep within your subconscious mind. You might be dreaming, or you might even be fully unconscious. Next are theta waves. So these are faster than delta waves. It's a higher frequency, and they're associated with being in a more relaxed state while still having some level of awareness. And I put this in that state just between being asleep and being awake, where the mind is maybe a bit more lucid, or maybe even daydreaming. Then you have alpha waves. So these are faster than theta waves, and they're associated with being in a more calm and a worry-free state. You're fully alert. And I describe this as the state of mind when you're maybe really enjoying a good book or a good movie, or you're focused on learning new information, perhaps listening to a lecture or something like that. Then come beta waves, and these are the second fastest waves, and they represent basically the default state for most of us during our wakeful hours. So in this state, we're fully alert, and maybe we're even a bit stressed out because this is the frequency that the brain is tuned into when it needs to really focus on surviving. So the stresses, the distractions, the obligations of daily life require our brains to be in this frequency quite often so that we can successfully navigate modern society and all of the complexities that come with it. And then last are gamma waves. So these are the fastest brain waves, and they're typically associated with higher states of alertness, higher states of consciousness, higher states of intelligence. So this is where you want to be when you're trying to be deeply focused, but not focused in like that relaxed way where you might be tapping into that alpha brainwave pattern where, you're listening to a lecture or reading a book, but more so like when you're trying to be fully immersed and focused on solving very difficult problems that require abstract and creative thinking. So another way of looking at all of this is that when you want to slip into the flow state at will, basically on demand, and tap into the cognitive abilities necessary to lock in on business, on work, on your goals, on big challenges that are before you, then you'll want to train your mind to upshift into that gamma wave frequency. And with a bit of training, you have the power to actively put your mind into hyper-focus mode. You can consciously upshift your cognitive functioning so that you can lock in and really get stuff done. You have the power to consciously level up into a state of mind that a lot of people who don't understand this concept will rarely ever tap into. At least they won't do so intentionally. Now, I don't mean to be hyperbolic here, but it's true. For the longest, I subscribe to the belief that I can't truly focus or get things done because of ADHD. I listen to doctors tell me that I have poor executive functioning and such. But now I believe that my ADHD, or whatever you want to call it, is more so a manifestation of being chronically in that beta brainwave frequency and failing to understand or to be more proactive with shifting my mind into a state of consciousness that is required for focused effort. So I was basically tuned into the wrong mental radio station, but now I know that I can tune into the correct station with a bit of training and with a bit of intentionality. And I think that you can also do the same. Now, I realize that life is busy, and realistically speaking, We can't expect to go through a super formulaic routine every single time to get ourselves into that gamma wave state. So I like to take what I think is a very practical approach. I have a sort of two-tiered system that can be divided into long-term habits and short-term measures. The long-term habits are the daily actions and the behaviors that I try to employ with consistency, which primes my brain to be more capable of shifting into higher states of focus. And then the short-term measures, those are the more so on-demand actions that I can take to help my mind be more focused at any specific point in time. So hear me out on this because it's way simpler than it seems. So let's talk about long-term habits first. Let's start off with brain foods. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the term before, but essentially, there are certain foods that are associated with higher levels of cognitive functioning. And these also happen to be the foods that are associated with the gamma brainwave frequency. So foods that are particularly high in omega-3s come to mind. But most notable among these foods include nuts and dark chocolate. So if you're looking for an excuse to eat chocolate covered almonds or anything similar to that, then here it is. But when it comes to dark chocolate, you typically want to eat or go for higher than 70% chocolate content. Second is consistent exercise. So Jim Quick, the author of Limitless, which is a really, really good book, by the way, he says it best: when your body moves, your brain grooves. And I'm not going to elaborate on this point because I'm sure that the notion of exercise improving your cognitive functioning is not a particularly controversial take. So I'll just say to exercise, do it regularly, and you will for sure increase your capacity for higher order brain activity, including being able to tap into that gamma wave brain frequency. Now, thirdly is having some sort of meditation or wellness practice. And I'd say that meditation is probably the most potent of the different wellness practices because it entails you manually shifting your brain into different states of consciousness, which is quite frankly the point of all of this. However, I understand that meditation is a skill in and of itself, and it's not something that everyone is necessarily willing or ready to do. So aside from that, a regularly recurring wellness practice like going to the spa, getting massages, or some other form of deep relaxation, I think is a really good way to keep your mind primed to shift into different states of consciousness. So that's long term. Now let's talk about short term measures. So there are a number of quick fixes that you can turn to help yourself enter into that gamma state for better focus, for better brain operation. Breath work is one that immediately comes to mind. Psychedelics are another, but neither of these are things that I can speak particularly intelligently about. That's not like my area of interest. However, there is one very simple one that I like to use, which is binaural beats. And these are super easy to find on any platform that you use for music. And I typically just put on some noise canceling headphones and I use YouTube. I have a YouTube Premium, so I don't really have the distracting commercials, but I'll use YouTube to search for something like binaural beats, 40 hertz, gamma wave, deep focus, something like that. And I'm basically all set. So within a few minutes, I'm in the zone. In fact, that's actually what I did to develop the script for this video. In the past, it would take me multiple days to complete a script because I struggled with writer's block and finding the creativity to really string my thoughts together in a coherent manner. But now that I've been really keen on tapping into higher order brain frequencies, it only took me about 3 hours or so to put this full script together. So when people see me with my headphones on, I'm sitting in a coffee shop or wherever I'm working for the day, it might look like I'm just listening to regular music, but what people probably don't realize is that I'm pumping brainwave frequencies into my system to put me into whatever zone I need to be in for that particular moment. And I should also mention that it extends beyond just gamma waves. So when I want my brain to be, say, in learning mode, I'll go for alpha wave binaural beats, Or when I want to de-stress and really relax, then I might go for theta wave frequencies. So let me finish by saying that you don't have to follow my approach exactly. I think that simply being aware of the different brainwave frequencies and the fact that you can actively traverse the spectrum of brainwave frequencies puts a person in a position to really get focused on the important challenges that sit before them. And I think this is more important than ever in this increasingly distracted world where focus, in my opinion, is the differentiating factor between the world controlling you as opposed to you being in control of your own life and living life on your own terms. That's all that I have for today, guys. Remember to sign up below for access to my list of life-changing books. And until next time, always remember to get up, get out, and get after it. Peace.